이거 이건네 이건네.
It was in the fall, 25 years ago, that a number of Nova Scotia's mainland chiefs came together and decided they wanted to form a tribal council. After a quarter century, the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq has become one of the strongest and best administered tribal councils in Canada. Puckenkeg, Pictou Landing, Millbrook, Gluescat, Annapolis Valley, Bear River, all benefited from what the founding chiefs envisioned when they formed the first tribal council in Nova Scotia, the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. Lloyd Johnson, Director of Economic Development at Millbrook, and former Chief Steve Marshall remember the groundwork laid for the tribal council.
In 1985, there was an initiative by the federal government to downsize Indian affairs, and one of the ways of doing that was tribal councils, and we were invited to go to Manitoba and look at a tribal council, the Southeast Tribal Council in Southeast Manitoba, and that sort of led to us coming back and meeting with the councils and talking about the district concept. In fact, in January 15th, 1986, we had gotten the initial $40,000 to take it to the next step. That was a good thing. I mean, it resulted in the CMM formation, and you know, a lot of positive things have happened.
You know, initially there was some fear about the change and the takeover, and there was talk about, well, we're going into self-government, we're not ready to. But that was far from the truth. The Confederacy had done a great job, you know, and Danny and of course now Don has done a good job.
Danny was Dr. Dan Paul, CMN's founding executive director. He left his position with Indian Affairs to take over the leadership of the new organization with a staff of 2.
The chiefs sat down and told me that they wanted an outfit that would be able to, you know, do research and handle some of their legal problems and be a lobbyist on their behalf and so forth and so on. And that, I knew what they wanted, and then I put it in the writing, and everybody was happy with it, and so I took it from there.
Okay, we'll do a quick review of our minutes.
The outstanding achievement is that it's 25 years old, and it's an accountable organization, and it's a transparent organization. It's running the way I envisioned it to run for decades to come, and I'm quite proud of that fact.
Indeed, it has been a great 25 years, with an exemplary record from the beginning under Dan Paul's guidance. 1986, a solid CMN constitution and effective working structure, accountable and transparent. 1988, Mi'kmaq-focused education programs from grade school to university. 1990, employment equity, housing, and a first 5-year funding plan with Ottawa. 1990, creation of the Mi'kmaq Nation News, which was to become incorporated as the Mi'kmaq Maliseet Nations News. 1991, Mainland Mi'kmaq Development Corporation is established. 1993, CMM begins work on implementing recommendations of the Marshall Inquiry into the wrongful murder conviction of Donald Marshall, Jr.
Stop and think about it. I mean, 25 years ago, man, I was only like 32 or something like that. We went into it pretty green.
Frank Muse became chief of Bear River the year after CMN was formed and quickly realized the benefits of the new organization.
Well, I think the biggest thing was that, you know, when we joined the tribal council, and I remember sitting in some of the board meetings and discussing, you know, where should we go and how should we do this, and I remember just one little example. I remember we were going to hire a financial advisor, and at the time, way back then, I mean, we were talking some pretty big monies, you know, to hire this individual, and I could not get my head around that, to justify why would we pay somebody that kind of money plus travel. I said, that's more than our whole community makes in a year, you know. But anyways, we hired the individual, and I hummed and hawed. But anyways, the individual come down and looked at our audit from the previous year, and it was, I don't know, I'll just throw a figure out. I think it was around $8,000, something like that. And so she sat down, and 2 days later, she brought this computer printout and said, here, just give this to the auditor, and that should be fine. The auditor come in. 2 days later, they left. Our bill was $2,500, and I said, wow, she just saved us like all this money. And then so the next thing we needed something else and something else, and then I started adding it up, and I said, you know, just doing our audit with the 6 communities, she saved us, you know, tens of thousands of dollars.
Executive Director Dr. Don Julian has become a familiar face of CMM, and under his leadership over 18 years, the Confederacy has gained the respect of all levels of government and recorded many outstanding achievements. 1996, Eastern Woodland Publishing is established. 1998-99, CMN takes the lead in development of the Tripartite Forum to work with the province and the federal government. 2002, 13 chiefs sign an umbrella agreement to begin talks on treaty rights and Aboriginal title. 2003, Mi'kmaq Legal Support Network is launched. 2003, the Mi'kmaq-Debert Interpretive Trail opens to the public. 2004, the Mi'kmaq Nova Scotia FirstNet website is launched. An impressive past, but what are the challenges for the next 10 years? Don Julian.
I guess the biggest challenges in the next 10 years is to see what's going to happen with respect to negotiations with the federal and provincial government on Mi'kmaq title to Nova Scotia and the shared of natural resources. What exactly is our government going to look like?
Over the past quarter century, CMM has been involved in the mainstream of Mi'kmaq life in Nova Scotia and has taken a strong position on many controversial issues. One of the outstanding achievements of the Confederacy was finding a legal avenue by which the lawyers could take the Donald Marshall Jr. eel fishing case to the Supreme Court of Canada. Dr. Julian's excellent research ability and knowledge of Mi'kmaq history helped to win the most significant court case the Mi'kmaq have undertaken.
We first started looking at doing a court case on the 1752 treaty. But fortunately enough, I had an opportunity to go to Justice Nova Scotia and look at all the information they had brought back from London. So they said, what would you suggest? I said, well, let's do some research on 1716-61. So they changed that whole thing, and they brought forward the 1716-61 treaties that were signed in Halifax. And that's what they defended Donald Marshall on. We were gathered in Halifax knowing that the decision was coming down. And we were very surprised that 5 out of 7 of the justices of the Supreme Court were in favor. But to our surprise, it was hunting, fishing, trapping, fowling, and gathering. It was a whole gamut of things that were in our treaties.
CMM now administers a large number of programs for its 6-member communities and has the respect of all those with whom it has dealt, whether First Nations organizations, governmental groups, academic institutions, or individuals. Lynn Knockwood, CMM's Director of Common Services.
6-member communities have built CMM to where it's at. They've been supportive, they've been encouraging, and they've been open. They've been open to their community needs, and we're open to listen. And that really has done CMM great in the past, and I think that will take CMM into the future for sure.
Its finances have been carefully managed. Starting with a budget of about $300,000, it now manages an operating budget of over $11 million annually, and it has never run a deficit. The education of youth has always been in the forefront of CMM's agenda. For Danny Paul, it was an early priority.
Education program, I guess, would be the top of the list. When I started CMM, I wanted to, I can't remember the exact figures, but there were damn few young people from the 5 reserves we were involved in, the bands that we were involved in that were in university at that time. And so I was looking for a good executive director, and Kathy Knockwood was available, and I was lucky enough to get her on staff, and we set up a program again that was used as a role model across Canada, and Kathy encouraged a lot of people to go to university, and I think in a very short period of time we went from practically nothing in Dalhousie and St. Mary's to over 200 or 300 students. So it was quite an accomplishment. That was one of the highlights.
Earlier this year, Dr. Julian and Acadia University President Ray Ivany signed a Memorandum of Understanding. It commits them to improve Aboriginal student participation in post-secondary education and open First Nations communities to academic research. Wayne Toney of Annapolis Valley First Nation, taking a double major in psychology and sociology as a mature student, says the agreement is crucial.
First off, this was a monumental event for First Nations people and Acadia University. Acadia has acknowledged that First Nations students have different learning styles. As well, they're opening summer camps. They want to bring First Nations students to campus just to show them that this isn't a scary place. This isn't a place where only the few, the elite, the super intelligent succeed. All you have to do is be here, be part of it, experience it. So Acadia, they have extended the olive branch to the First Nations people here on campus. The CMM organization is a go-to organization for all the students. And without that organization, without the level of integrity and dignity that exists there, a lot of First Nations students who want to be in education would be lost.
Through Dr. Julian's leadership as a member of the Acadian Senate, the university has established a gathering space for Aboriginal students.
Second, they've given us a space on campus, a First Nations Friendship Center, and we're culturalizing the First Nations Friendship Center. We want students from various reservations across Canada to know that they have a space that is uniquely First Nations. We gather there as students from different cultures, but the same cultures. We share stories, we share our heritage, and we celebrate the fact that we are First Nations people.
CMM has always been a progressive organization, but it has never forgotten that Mi'kmaq youth and all Nova Scotians must know their past in order to understand the future. The Confederacy has sponsored youth activities like this Suicide Awareness Conference. Conference organizer, Nathan Sack.
Today we are hosting the first Atlantic Canadian Round Dance. This is a celebrate life type of ceremony. It is a social, so it's not a very serious ceremony. I've been contracted by Confederacy Mainland Mi'kmaq to put together a suicide prevention conference. So with that said, I decided to change the wording on that and call it Celebrate Life.
Mi'kmaq de Bert.
what we're trying to depict is our people that lived here 13,500 calendar years ago. And in archaeological terms,
This will be a center where all Mi'kmaq will one day celebrate their heritage and culture, a vision towards which Dr. Julian and all members of the Confederacy are working.
our biggest and my biggest goal in life is someday that we have a museum in Debert, Nova Scotia. It's one of the oldest Paleo-Indian sites in eastern North America that's dated. And what's going to happen is that it's going to bring back the history of our people, bring pride to our people, that knowing that we've been living here for 13,500 or more years.
CMM can be proud of the esteem in which its leadership is held across Canada. Both Danny and Don have been honored with the Order of Nova Scotia and the Order of Canada. But what of the future for CMM? Don has some thoughts.
I guess I would say, wow, we've made 25 years of continuing history. We have to continue negotiations, we have to talk, we have to participate, we have to have MOUs, we have to keep going. Our people are just finally making one big step in being accepted with the province of Nova Scotia, with the federal government, with everyday individuals. People are beginning to understand us a little bit more. We need a little bit more push for them to understand and appreciate us even more.
We honor these CMM pioneers who have left us but are forever in our thoughts.